Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the February 27th, 2019 ZBA for the town of Merrimack. If you all could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, indivisible, liberty.
Rich, if you could read the preamble, please.
Absolutely. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will proceed with the petitions in the order they are listed on the agenda unless the board deems it appropriate to take a petition out of order. State law and local ordinances set out the criteria that must be met in order for this board to grant a request. Minimum requirements are outlined on the form provided by the Community Development Office, and the petitioner should proceed with this format to provide adequate justification for the board to grant the request. The chair will then open the meeting to hear testimony either for or against the request. All discussion will be between the speaker and the board. Please be respectful of all and in the interest of time refrain from repeating previous testimony. No new documentation will be accepted by the board for consideration this evening, but the board reserves the right to ask for additional testimony at any time. After hearing the facts from all parties regarding a petition, the chairman will close the public hearing, and the board will deliberate and vote on the request before moving on to the next petition. Please turn off all cell phones and pagers.
Thank you, Rich. For sitting in for the full-time position this evening, Lenny will be sitting in for full-time. All righty. Couple of housekeeping items. When you come down to speak, make sure there's a clipboard with a pen. Please make sure that you sign in. Also, make sure that the light on the microphone is bright green. I know that the light, it's the little thing there is green as it is. Just make sure it's lit up when you speak, and then state your name beforehand. Anybody who's going to be speaking tonight, will you please stand to be sworn in? If you're going to do any type of speaking for or against a petition, any speaking at all, I need you to stand. Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, have a seat. Yep. Which one? Okay, sorry, hold on one second. Just excuse yourself. Okay. All right, Rich, you can have a seat. We'll have Drew step in for this one.
All right, thank you.
Due to a conflict, Rich is going to be stepping down for the first two petitions. So, Drew, you'll be on for the first two petitions. Okay. All right, and we're all set. Okay. First petition, Wired Barn. LLC petitioner owner Equitable Waiver of dimensional requirements under section 2.02.13E4A of the zoning ordinance to permit an existing barn to remain 29.58 feet from the front property line, whereas 30 feet is required. The parcel is located at 3-Wire Road in the C2 General Commercial Flood Hazard Conservation Aquifer Conservation Districts Tax Map 5D-3 Lot 109, case number 2019-04.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Make sure your mic's on.
Yep. Yeah, lights on. Is that
You can
better?
bring a little closer.
Sure.
Thank you.
Do that. My name is Paul Chisholm. I'm a project manager with Keach Nordstrom Associates. Tonight, I am representing the applicant and owner of the property at 3-Wire Road, Wired Red Barn LLC, as they are requesting 2 equitable waivers for dimensional requirements. Essentially, the barn in this area of the property was constructed slightly over the front setback line and side setback line back in 1985 when it was originally built. In front, there's a 7-inch encroachment, and the worst case location, which is this front corner right here. And then on the side, there's a 5-inch encroachment, basically all the way through along the property line. I'd be happy to read the conditions and criteria into the record if you'd like me to, or I can just kind of discuss them.
Well, I actually do need you to read them each into the record.
Sure.
And please stop after each one so we can ask any questions.
Absolutely.
Thank
Be
you.
happy to. And I believe we're starting with 202.13E4A, which is the barn that in relation to the front yard or front building setback. Criteria 1, explain how the violation has existed for 10 years or more with no enforcement action, including written notice being commenced by the town. There's the plan on record at the registry is dated back to 1985. That plan shows this barn as under construction at that point in time, which essentially establishes its existence, obviously, for 30-something years now. Planning staff has confirmed that no enforcement action has been taken on the property to date.
Is there any questions on that, on the first one? All right, the next one, please.
Okay. Number 2, explain how the physical or dimensional violation does not constitute a public or private nuisance, nor diminish the value of other property in the area, nor interfere with or adversely affect any present or permissible future uses of any such property. Generally speaking, improving and adding value to a property does not cause the value of surrounding properties to diminish. The proposed use fits in with the existing neighborhood, which has a mixture of adjacent commercial, multifamily, and residential uses, and therefore will not constitute a public or private nuisance. Furthermore, the character of the barn will be maintained, which is the applicant believes fits the character and charm of this established neighborhood and does not interfere with or adversely affect the surrounding properties.
Questions?
Question.
Yes.
There hasn't been any issues with this since '85. What triggered it?
So
That's the same thing.
Yep. So a little history here. You probably remember this property from back in, I think, October of last year. They came before you to get a special exception to allow commercial and residential use on this property. It was their goal and intent at that time to open up and run a boutique doggy daycare facility.
Yes.
It became evident through the planning process that the requirements of bringing this property from a residential use to a commercial use in terms of fire safety and all of those things, the cost was just too much to bear for the applicant in what, the small scale business they were proposing there. So at this point, they're looking to go a different direction in the property, essentially add or convert the barn into a 2-bedroom residential unit. And so not having the benefit of having a plot plan during the original special exception process last year.
Somebody did a survey.
Exactly. We
Yep,
did a
okay.
survey as part of the
That's fine.
site plan.
Yep, that's what I figured.
Therefore, it was, that's where we realized these things.
Okay. Number 3.
Okay, number 3, explain how the cost of correction far outweighs any public benefit to be gained. The building encroachment into the front yard setback is less than 7 inches. The applicant would bear substantial cost to alter the structure and make it conforming, and no noticeable difference in appearance or benefit to the public would be realized by such a minor change in layout.
Questions? So this is going to be converted into a 2-bedroom apartment?
Correct.
Okay. All right. No commercial, just residential?
That's correct, yep.
So is it still zone commercial or?
It's zoned commercial, but it's also in the town overlay district,
Okay.
and residential use is allowed in the overlay district.
Okay. Go ahead.
Question for staff. Explain equitable waiver.
So an equitable waiver is basically a way to get dimensional relief where a violation is discovered to have occurred not through intent, basically. It's discovered sometime in the future, whether it's nobody's fault, like an accidental error in measurement or an error in survey distance or something along those lines.
So we're not looking for a variance.
Correct. Equitable waiver is a much cleaner, straightforward path for the applicant to reach
Got it.
here.
If I may just add on to that a little bit, I did bring a copy of the 1985 plan that's on record. And
Okay.
this is the barn right here. They did put setbacks on there, and of course, they had intended, it's obvious that they had intended to build this, correctly, but for whatever reason, it just
We're
didn't
talking
happen.
inches, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay. Questions, anybody? All right. I'm gonna open this up to the public hearing. I know you're here for you have two different petitions. We're gonna
Yes.
hear them separately.
Yes. that's
So
fine.
I'm going to do the first one first.
Sure.
So, this is the, so is there anybody out there that would like to speak for this petition? Is there anybody out there that would like to speak against this petition? Okay, if there's nobody to speak for or against it, that makes my life a little easier. Unless there's any other further comments you want to make, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Very good.
Okay, close the public hearing. And do I have any areas of discussion, motions?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we grant the equitable waiver of dimensional requirements under section 2.02.13 sub E, sub 4, sub A of the zoning ordinance to permit an existing barn to remain 29.58 feet from the front property line, whereas 30 feet is required. The parcel is located at 3 Wire Road in the C2 General Commercial Flood Hazard Conservation and Aquifer Conservation Districts. Tax map 5D-3, lot 109, case 2019-04.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Drew. She beat you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstain? 5-0-0. Excellent. All right, I'm just going to read the next one, just hang tight. Next petition is Wire Barn LLC petitioner owner equitable waiver of dimensional requirements under section 2.02.13E4B of the zoning ordinance to permit an existing barn to remain 14.42 feet from the side property line, whereas 15 feet is required. The parcel is located at 3 Wire Road in the C2 General Commercial Flood Hazard Conservation and Aquifer Conservation Districts, tax map 5D-3, lot 109, case number 2019-05. What I'm going to have you do is I'm just going to have you read in, just for the, for the sake of record, have you read in if there's any questions, we'll answer questions and then go from there.
Okay, very good. So, first criteria, explain how the violation has existed for 10 years or more with no enforcement action, including written notice being commenced by the town. A copy of a record plan dating back to 1985 is attached that states the garage as under construction, thus establishing its existence for more than 10 years. Planning staff has confirmed that no enforcement action has been taken on the property to date.
Questions?
Paul, bring the mic a little closer.
Number 2?
Explain how the physical or dimensional violation does not constitute a public or private nuisance, nor diminish the value of other property in the area, nor interfere with or adversely affect any present or permissible future uses of any such property. Generally speaking, improving and adding value to a property does not cause the value of surrounding properties to diminish. The proposed use fits in with the existing neighborhood, which has a mixture of adjacent commercial, multifamily, and residential uses, and therefore will not constitute a public or private nuisance. Furthermore, the character of the barn will be maintained, which the applicant believes fits the character and charm of this established neighborhood and does not interfere with or adversely affect the surrounding properties.
Questions? Number 3?
Explain how the cost of correction far outweighs any public benefit to be gained. The building encroachment into the side yard setback is less than 5 inches. The applicant would bear substantial cost to alter the structure to make it conforming, and no noticeable difference in appearance or benefit to the public would be realized by such a minor change in layout.
Questions? Okay. I'm going to open this up to the public. Are there any questions? Anybody for this petition? Anybody against this petition? Okay, I will close the public. Any other comments? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. This is just the side property.
It's the same thing.
Side
yeah.
thing, okay.
You got it.
So I'm going to close the public hearing unless there's any questions for petitioner. All right, any areas? Okay, so the public hearing is closed. Any discussion items, motions?
Make a motion.
Turning.
I make a motion to grant the equitable waiver of dimensional requirements under section 2.02.13 sub E, sub 4, sub B of the zoning ordinance to permit an existing barn to remain 14.42 feet from the side property line, whereas 15 feet is required. The parcel is located at 3 Wire Road in the C-2 General Commercial Flood Hazard Conservation and Aquifer Conservation Districts, tax map 5D-3, lot 109, case number 2019-05. 05.
Seconded by Kathleen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 500. You're all set?
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
You as well.
Next petition, Jeffrey and
Naja.
Naja, sorry, thank you. Glauber, petitioner owner variance under section 2.02.1A of the zoning ordinance to permit a personal services and professional offices in addition to the already permitted through a previously granted variance, dentist office and residential uses. Get rid of that, correct? The parcel is located at 33 Bedford Road in the R Residential and Aquifer Conservation Districts and Wellhead Protection Area, tax map 6D, lot 239, case number 2019-06. Also, Rich is back as the full-time member, so
You're off
you're
the
all
hook.
set. You're off the hook, Drew. But thank you very much. Hi.
Hi.
How you doing? Make sure you might want to pull the mic a little closer.
Okay.
All right, you sign in to the
Where?
clipboard to the right.
Oh, okay.
All right. State your name and
My name is Jeffrey Glauber. My wife is back there, Nadia Glauber. We live at 33 Bedford Road in Merrimack. I've lived there since September 1974. I operated my dental office out of there from September 1974 till June 1st, 2017.
what do we want you to get in and give us a brief overview of what you're looking for, and then we'll get into the
Okay.
criteria.
I've been operating under a variance granted by the town zoning board since 1974 to permit the use of my office there. We retired, the office is closed, we have unoccupied professional office space now that we're looking to be able to lease out to a similar kind of professional person and/or small business to comply with the same kind of limitations that were imposed upon me from the zoning board from day one,
Okay.
basically.
All right. Okay. All right. Why don't we go through the criteria and just stop after each one in case we have any questions. Before you do that, I have a quick question for staff. So we're hearing a variance on the property to permit.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
From what I understand, presently, the variance goes with the property, so that the variance to this date still will allow a dentist to practice in there.
Mm-hmm.
What we're asking for is if I can't get a dentist in there to occupy the space, as opposed to a separate person, to just modify the variance so that another professional kind of person can come in there.
Okay.
Just to clarify, you're living in the property now,
Yes.
correct?
We live correct.
And you're expecting that somebody moving in would not be living there,
Correct.
but the entire property would be commercial professional space?
No.
No?
No. Just the unused part of the property now, which was my office, which is now
Okay.
sitting vacant.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay.
Yep.
That's what I clarify. Okay. Please proceed.
You want me to read the?
Yeah, just and stop after each one as we may have questions.
Okay, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. As I stated previously, the dental office has been in use from 1974 to 6/17. Right now, we're trying to find a suitable tenant for the unused office space to help pay for the upkeep and maintenance of the space. For example, real estate taxes, energy costs, insurance costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Any questions on number one? Number two, please.
Okay. The spirit of the ordinance is observed because we will see that this space will be utilized as it has been utilized formerly for close to 43-plus years, as determined by the previous variances.
Questions? Number three.
Granting the variance would do substantial justice because we're unable to carry the entire financial burden long-term now unless we can get some help in the additional expenses of the unused part of our structure. For close to 43 years, this property was classified as a mixed-use property that produced income from our office. Since we closed our office, the mixed-use part of the property was removed, but the carrying costs have not been modified. For example, real estate taxes are the same, as well as insurance, energy costs, maintenance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Questions on number 3? And number 4?
For the following reasons, the value of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. There will be no change in how this space will be used by any future tenant per previous variance requirements, other than the type of business moving in there. There will be no external change in the structure whatsoever.
Questions? Number 5, unnecessary hardship.
Owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property because this property has been in existence since 1974 with our dental office functioning out of it. It's been assessed as a mixed-use property by the Tax Assessment Office. As stated previously, when we closed our office, the town removed the mixed-use aspect. However, the financial burden on this property has not changed. To deny this variance will remove our ability to receive any income to be able to carry all other costs associated with the structure.
Questions on that part? If you could read number 2, please.
The proposed use is a reasonable one because if this variance is permitted, the structure and property will remain the exact same as it has been from the beginning. No outward appearance will occur.
Any questions?
Excuse me.
Okay. So just basically looking to find a tenant,
Yeah,
whether
we're
it
looking
be
to help.
ideally a dentist, but if
You know,
it was a
looking to help.
chiropractor or whatever
Yes.
would work. Okay. All right. Excellent. Any luck so far, or are you waiting to get the variance first?
It's like the dog catching its tail.
Chicken and an egg.
Chicken and the egg.
Well, to answer your question, I had a tenant December 1st of this year.
Oh, you
That's
did?
when I consulted Mr. Price, and he wasn't sure of the way the variance read, if I'm correct, so he had to do some research, and he was the one who suggested that we start from here.
Okay. Excellent. Any other questions before I open this up? All right, I'm gonna, if you just hang tight for a second, open this up. Is there anybody that'd like to speak in favor of this petition? Does anybody like to speak against this petition? Okay, with that being said, I'm gonna close the public hearing. Is there any discussion items, any motions? Lynn?
Question for staff. You know what I'm gonna ask? Doesn't the variance go with the property?
The variance does. However, the 1974 variance was granted specifically limiting the commercial use of the property to dental office
Okay.
only.
Thank you.
Whoops, that's not true. Okay, as a point of clarification, the first variance granted in 1974 was granted basically to me only, which we ran with for 15 or 20 years, not knowing that provision. Maybe 15 or 20 years ago, we looked into some refinancing, at which time the bank's attorneys took over, yes,
Sorry.
took over, and they looked into the variance that the town of Merrimack granted us, for me at the time, and they discovered, in essence, that the variance that was granted was technically illegal, that the variance goes with the property. It doesn't go with the owner. It doesn't go with me.
Right.
And that was
Correct.
based on a decision from the New Hampshire Supreme Court
Yep.
with Ocean Properties and Tom Walsh. And that's why Jeffrey Morissette, if you look in the folder, rewrote the way the variance was written in 86 or whatever, it's 96, to go with the property, okay, and not with the owner.
Right.
Right.
So, correct. I didn't want to overcomplicate it, but yes, there was findings that the variance was granted improperly. So administrative decisions were subsequently made that the way it was done was improper. So it was interpreted that it had to run with the land and that the dental office was the only permitted commercial use.
So right now, we're looking at permitting other potential businesses,
Professional.
Limited to
Professional
professional
use.
office and personal service. Right.
Okay.
So basically,
and that'll carry with the property.
Right.
Okay.
He's basically looking to expand the variance to allow what a typical home occupation would allow for.
Okay. So any further discussion, questions? Motion?
I'll make a motion that we grant Jeffrey and Nadja Glauber, petitioner owner, variance under section 2.02.1.a of the zoning ordinance to permit personal services and professional offices in addition to the already permitted, through a previously granted variance, dentist office and residential uses. The parcel is located at 33 Bedford Road in the R Residential and Aquifer Conservation Districts and Wellhead Protection Area. Tax map 6D, lot 239, case 2019-06.
Do I have a second? Kathy, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
You're done.
500. You're all set. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, Bob.
Next is Apple Development Limited Partnership petitioner owner variance under section 1710-3.3 of the zoning ordinance to permit a previously approved electronic reader board sign to have an area of 672 square feet, whereas 253 square feet is permitted by previously approved variance. The parcel is located at 360 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial Aquifer Conservation Planned Residential Overlay and Elderly Housing Overlay Districts, tax map 4D-3, lot 001, case number 2019-07. Okay. Cool. That's good to know. Whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
You're signed in and everything?
We just did, yep. And
Right.
let's see, my light doesn't.
Make sure your mic's on.
Light green.
Is it bright green?
Push it and see if it changes. There you go.
How's that, is that better?
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you very much for giving us the time to speak to you tonight. Mine.
All right.
Sure.
That sounds better.
Try again? All
There you
right.
go.
There we go, okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you very much. We're glad to have the opportunity to speak to you tonight in connection with this variance application. My name is Peter Imsey. I'm an attorney at Sulloway and Hollis, a law firm up in Concord, New Hampshire. We're here representing the applicant tonight. Representing the applicant to my right is Rob Barsamian, a principal of the applicant. And in addition, I think perhaps helping us later with the evening, either with the electronics or flipping the signs, my associate Joseph Lavoie, also my law firm. We are here to obviously present information to you about the variance that's been filed with you to increase the size of this already approved pylon sign. With the board's permission, what we'd like to do is split our presentation with, first, Mr. Barsamian can take a few moments to address sort of the history of the project, his activities to date, variances that have been obtained to date, and basically tee up why it is that he is here tonight asking for the variance. Following his presentation, I will be able to follow the format of your ordinance and address the 5 criteria for a variance, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay.
All right. Hello again.
Were you sworn in?
I don't think so.
No.
Raise
I
your
was
right
not.
hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right.
So we're talking about Merrimack 360. We were here, I think, on two occasions, talking about the sign in the back of the property. And as we have kind of developed the overall project. And in the beginning, when we got the first variance and the second variance on the sign, we always had focused on the sign being with the overall project as one, because the sign for us was we needed to get some exposure on the street. That was kind of a big piece of our presentation in the beginning, and as we began even going further into it, we realized how critical the exposure on the back to drive traffic will be. So as we went through that process, we probably in the beginning should have studied all of the issues that relate to these signs with the state. And as we did that and went through that process and did a kind of studied it even further with doing a lot of drone studies, going out and tagging trees and trying to figure out safety views, what's readable and not readable, we determined that the sign that we got approved wasn't adequate for what we were trying to accomplish. So it took us a while to kind of get there. Took us probably 3 or 4 months of studying. We did 2 different drone studies. We continued to talk with the state to understand how we were going to get the visual effect we needed to get from the traffic to the sign, how that was going to work, how that was going to impact the process we had to go through. And we determined, and if you remember at one point we had this off-premise and on-premise, and we really weren't sure how we were going to treat it, because initially we thought the off-premise was the way we were going to go. But because of all the state regulations, the tree cutting, and a variety of other things during the process, we didn't think that was going to really work. We never thought we could get there to accomplish that. So we kind of pulled back and we said, okay, how do we make this sign drive more traffic for us? And it became even more evident as, although we think we have a lot of traffic on Daniel Webster Highway, specifically in front of Merrimack 360 at the light, it's backed up periodically, the counts are not high. And to continue to bring in the kind of retail we want to bring in, our focus is driving traffic. And we just have to continue to do that to be successful. So in this process, sometimes it's in the beginning to get tenants, it's one thing, because there's a lot of things that happen in getting tenants. And it takes a long time today with the way retail sits. It took us a year to get certain tenants there, and it's taking us even longer. We're not 100% full. So it's a continuing work in progress, and we have to continue to establish that, not only are you going to come to a center, but we're going to continue to work with you to drive traffic. And we're doing okay, but not great. So the driving traffic piece is something that we have to continue to work on, almost forever in a project like this. We don't have the highway access that a lot of these other projects have. Daniel Webster Highway, you can see for yourself if you go from our project to the other retail projects next to us, none of them are 100% full. And it's a challenge. This project was not full for a long, long time. And they face the same challenges that we have. So for us, it's just about driving traffic. How do we make this be the best center we can have with driving traffic? Being sensitive to the neighborhood. We already have a sign, and so the issue for us is just size now. And we've determined that the size we're asking for is the size we need for 2 reasons. 1, so people can see the sign, and 2, to get the tenants excited enough to contribute to the cost of the sign. So the sign isn't a moneymaker for us. So we're not here saying, oh my God, we need this because it's going to supplement our income on the retail side. We need it to keep the retailers in the project long term. Everyone's fine when they open. It's how do we sustain driving traffic? Signage is a key piece to it. The highway is a key element to us. Having those names on the sign is a key component to them being successful long term. So I know that's maybe not part of this variance piece, but I wanted you to understand why we are coming back again. I don't like coming back more than once, but I'm in this kind of box a little bit. Tenants are saying, look, sign's too small. You promised us something in the back, blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying, look, we did the best we could, but I get it. It's not a marketable size because of the trees that we have. And you'll see, I wanted to show you some of that also, so you can just visually see what we're talking about. I think it will help. So the top one, obviously, is the approved sign that we have today. And the bottom one is, I'm sorry, the one on the right is the one that we're looking to get approved. So we have a view from the northbound side on the top. And again, it's that 10 by roughly 25. And what we're proposing is the 14 by 48.
There are two different pole sizes. On the one on the right, you have one that seems to be down in around the trees.
Different angle.
Sorry, you have one that seems to be down in the trees and the other one. What am I missing on that?
That's okay. Looking at your, on your, I'm going to say left, looking at it, the sign at the panel at the top is what you see northbound from 500 feet away. The bottom panel on that left-hand side is what you see from 250 feet away northbound.
Yep.
So those are both the existing approved sign from 500 and 250 feet. On the right-hand side, it would be the larger sign that the application asks for tonight from those same two distances, one from 500 feet, one from 250 feet.
So, and the sign's going to be lidded, correct? It's going to be lidded. It's going to be
Lidded.
lit.
It is
I
going
know
to,
lidded.
it is.
It's going to be lit, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, what is the light noise for everyone on the other side? Because that's high enough that the people across from 360 and the people and the I don't know, those
Adjacent to.
condos, adjacent, I mean, if it's pretty bright, I mean, and if it's anything like the home mortgage signs up on Manchester, in Manchester, that's going to be, that's a lot of noise.
Well, I think that we didn't resubmit the illumination study that we had done this time, because we did submit it the last time. And our study shows that obviously everything is our illumination stays on our site. And in the study, again, it's the same illumination package that we had the last time that we filed with this sign.
So is the sign illuminated, or are there spots hitting the sign?
It really depends, again, on we're going to keep all the light on the sign. It's not going to illuminate on someone else's property, and that's what the study shows us. We don't know what sign we're going to build just yet. As far as, is it going to be more of a digital sign that will flip, or is it going to be a stagnant sign?
Well, okay, so that being said, and
Yeah.
that raises a concern, if you don't know what size, what type of sign, whether you're going to build a digital or a static, I'd be honest with you, at least for me, that's going to weigh towards whether or not approving a larger sign is going to be something. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, if you're looking for a larger sign, but you can't say if it's going to be digital or if it's going to be static.
And I'll tell you that, well, first of all, you need to be able to know you can do something before you can actually market something. Either way, the illumination package is not going to light on someone else's property. We are going to, whether it's digital or stagnant, we're going to keep it, so that our property is the only property that is affected. It's not going to be spotted on someone else's property. It's going to stay on our property. One of the things, I think, it's hard to demonstrate this just with these two pictures, and maybe the video will help us a little bit, but this, you only get shots of this sign. It's not like, oh my God, you have this billboard and everyone's going to see it. We are covered with trees. Our goal is to cut the least amount of trees possible, and not towards the properties behind us or the condos to the left of us. It's really for the highway. So your sight lines are really our tree lines. So we have thousands of trees back there. We're not looking to cut all the trees. We're looking to position the sign in the right position, get it at the right height, make it safe enough so people can see it, And we already have the sign, and so we're saying, look, it's the same height, we just need it a little bigger so that we can market the property the proper way.
No, and I understand that, but I guess I'm a little, I'm concerned, not a little, I am concerned on, I mean, you not knowing what type of sign. I mean, I understand what you're saying. You want to know if you can do it, but I mean, that aside, you still haven't decided on whether it's a digital or static sign.
Well, I'm not 100% sure of the regs as far as illumination, but I know, and I should have tuned into the regs on the illumination piece, but I know, for example, typically, we have to keep the light on our own property, and it can't go on anyone else's property.
That is correct.
And we're going to stay under those rules and regulations. So whether it's digital or not digital, whether we're lighting it a certain way, there's guidelines that we have to stay within, which we will stay within. So we're not asking for a variance on lighting. We're saying, look, we're going to live with what the zoning allows us to do. We're going to make sure none of the lights go on anyone else's property. That's what the regs allow you to do.
Right.
And we're going to, and once we figure out exactly how many people will be on the sign, for example, then it'll be a determination, can we do digital, can we do static?
So and not to beat a dead horse on this, but again, a digital sign, even if the lighting is on your side, any flashing, strobing, or whatever you do, and you have to obviously meet DOT requirements for having it on the highway, and I get that as well. But people, just because the spotlight's over there doesn't mean I can't see it. And just because it's blinking over there and the light's over there doesn't mean that I can't see that. And you're talking about creating something much bigger. So now you're talking about creating a bigger spot over there. I can still see it from over here. And I understand the tree thing. Just let me finish. I understand the tree thing. But if you look around outside right now, it's not much. The trees aren't really blocking much of anything, and that's usually the way it is. Probably about 5 months out of the year. So that's why the whole static versus a digital sign is a concern you haven't really figured that. I understand where you're coming from though, but
Yeah, it's one of those things at this point, until we determine, again, it's really how many people are going to participate in the program. Can we afford to bid? A digital sign is, I think, almost $500,000. So the likely situation that we do a digital sign is probably very unlikely. But again, I'm not going to count it out. I think that you have zoning regs that we're going to follow.
Okay.
We're going to stay within those zoning regs.
Okay.
And so I get the fact that if someone turns their head a certain way or they look up at a distance that they could see something. But, if you look, there's four satellite towers next to us that are 150 feet high. There's 120 feet high or something like that.
I'm not sure exactly.
But they're not lit.
They're not lit. We have a sign across the street, with Merrimack Plaza that's 1,600 square feet, I think it is.
you mean the outlets?
The outlet sign,
Yeah.
it's a big sign, it's lit, they do a decent job with that. I think when you look at the video that we'd like to show you,
Sure.
I think some of that will go away because we have a hard time, even in the drone effect, you only see the sign for a short period of time because of the fact we have so many trees. And because we can't cut that many trees down. Because we have, you have a setback from the state, plus, so we can't hit their trees. And then we have our own setback from their line. So there's a lot of, you can't look at it in one vacuum. You have to say, okay, how does this thing sit? What's the pathway? How does it affect the people on the highway? Do they get a decent view of the sign driving by? And in northbound, it's okay. I think it's the southbound sign that we have more of a challenge with. So on the southbound sign, which is because of the topo and everything of the property, you don't really see the sign till you get up on top of the sign. And so this, again, demonstrates that you have to get close to the sign before you get a decent shot of the sign. And in this instance, are the distances the same as they were on the other one?
Yes, just to compare what you were seeing before on the left-hand side, It's 500 feet away, 200 feet away, and of the existing approved sign, the right-hand side, 500 feet, 200 feet with the sign that's being proposed.
And as you can see, the sign isn't, we're not facing the sign towards anybody but the highway.
No, I get that, but, yeah, okay, no, I made my point, I understand what you're saying.
Can we show you the quick video? It's
Actually,
it's
I
very
think,
brief.
did you have a question? Or-
No, Rob did.
Rob,
Yeah, just to clarify, when the applicant got the size and type of sign originally approved, it was originally approved as an electronic reader board, so that option is available to them. This petition specifies electronic reader board capability so they can maintain that right. Doesn't mean they have to, but they're looking to maintain that right.
Okay, that answers it for me, okay. Sure, if you want to show the video, go ahead.
I'm not sure exactly how to do it, but
Get him out of that seat.
And the other thing, sorry, real quick, in terms of flashing and scrolling messages, that's not permitted by the ordinance. A message has to remain static for 20 minutes, so.
all right, so we got it, but it's not going up there,
Okay.
right?
That raises a question. Are you planning on having this change?
Again, it's, if we have in the zoning ordinance, I think it's every 20.
Correct,
20
but I'm
minutes.
asking if you're planning to do that.
You know, if we get enough tenants to participate, then the answer would be yes.
Okay.
But again, I think, you know, I would say probably not.
Okay.
But if we were lucky enough to get enough tenants, all the tenants to participate, then it may allow us to do it.
Okay.
So I don't, can they see it? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, it's right there.
All right, there we go. Technology at its finest. So there we go. As you don't see it, you don't see it, and then it comes on you. And
This
that's,
is what's there now or what you're proposing?
looks like what we're proposing. That's what we're proposing. And then that's the opposite view of it as we go past it, right?
Do you have anything showing from not the highway?
We don't. No, we don't. We do not.
Because I'd be curious what you can see from DW Highway.
We don't have that view, you know, it's.
Can you give us an idea?
You know, again, it's, if you look at, I look at it a little bit like those towers that, you know, the satellite towers.
That aren't lighted?
Well, you can see them. You know, if you drive by them, you can see them. You're going to
Not at
see.
night.
You're going to see this. Well, our lights are going to be, again, it's not flashing to you, it's
Mhm.
flashing on something. And it's in a way that it doesn't reflect onto someone else's property. You know, it's positioned in such a way that it's facing the highway. It's not facing our abutters, it's not going down the hill, it's not facing the back of our building. It's really positioned, and it's the only way it can be, because you saw how quick that went. You know, coming from that position on the highway, you only see it at the end.
So the sign is wedge shaped, like this.
Correct.
So, I'm gonna, for what it's worth, I'm gonna assume that when you're saying the lighting's gonna be here and here. So behind it, that's gonna be pitch black.
It's going to be dark.
So somebody looks
All right,
up from
that's
Daniel
what-
Webster
that's the
Highway,
question.
they're gonna see the back end of that sign, the way, and they're gonna see,
Can
they're
we
not
turn
gonna
it
see
around?
that light.
No, so you're correct. So if this is from the highway, like looking straight up, let's just say.
But if
right?
you're on DW Highway,
You're going to,
you're seeing the back of it that is not
it
lit?
is not lit,
Okay.
You will still see some light, though.
Well,
and
you'll
that's
see
not
some
gonna be
reflection,
dirt
but
cheap.
it's not
but it's not lit.
Okay.
That's correct. Do we have the exposure from the other way?
Yes.
Yeah, let's show that, because I think that is really the better sign for us, and that faces no one. And so that you get, you know, a decent view pretty much the whole time. And again, when we pass it, there you go. It's tricky. There's a lot of trees. The sight lines are not for a long period of time. As you can see, on the northbound sign, you don't really see it. So no one's going to really see it because of the tree covering that we have. When you get close, you do see it. So I think that I was trying to at least demonstrate how we've been studying it, how we've been looking at it, and how we approached one of the reasons why we had to come here, just to show you this display, to say, we need to come back again and present this to you so you can see what we've been trying to accomplish.
You're not changing the height.
Height is the same,
You're just changing the physical size.
just the size.
The dimension,
The
okay.
dimension. So, again, we're asking for something that's 14 by 48, when we have something already approved, same height, 10 by 25. So that's really that's what we're asking
Okay.
for.
But the
And
same height.
same height,
Okay.
same illumination, all of the same things you approved the last time. So all I'd like to really focus on is the size acceptable? Because all those other things aren't changing. All those other things are the same for us.
Okay.
It's, do you guys feel that I'm demonstrating enough and convincing you enough that you can accept this change that we're asking for? I feel like the project as a whole, the sign as a whole, is improving values in the community. The fact we're full, the fact we want to be full, the fact we want to continue to be full. Every element for us, this project has a long history. It's been vacant for a long time. We didn't think we were going to be this deep into it when we started it, but it was a struggle to lease. We did everything we could to make it a special place to be. We focused on service to bring people to the issue they had before. Obviously, once the supermarket left, it was difficult. But the issue Daniel Webster Highway has in Merrimack as a whole is just generating traffic, okay? Even though we think it's busy, for retailers, it's not busy enough. The traffic numbers on Daniel, I can't get anyone to come here. So it took me a long time to handhold these tenants. I need to keep them. And, today it's different than 20 years ago. You have a supermarket, you have a 30-year lease. I don't have long leases. These guys, if I can't generate traffic, I lose tenants. Once you start losing one or two tenants, it's like the old story that you saw there. One goes, the other one goes. I don't want to be in that position. And retail today is difficult. So I'm trying to do everything I can to make it successful.
Are there any other questions from the board?
The one question that I had was, are these dimensions similar to that of a billboard?
They are. The 14 by 48 it's your typical billboard sign. That's correct.
Okay.
That's the standard billboard sign that you see on a highway.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Yep.
If there's no other questions from the board, I actually would like to get into the criteria.
Yep.
If you like.
Go ahead,
please.
Peter.
Sure, be very happy to do that. Okay. And may I just start by saying our application was quite comprehensive on all of the arguments, and I don't necessarily want to repeat everything that's in the application, so I just incorporate in our presentation all the arguments in our application, whether I state them again tonight. But going through the criteria, there are a total of 5. The first criteria relative to it won't be contrary to public interest. And I'm going to try here, since Mr. Barsamian did such a good job of addressing so many of the facts when prompted by your questions. It overlaps some of what I might have said. But again, on the issue of public interest, the focus is, the board has already granted a variance for a sign in this location at this height, and all we're talking about is a change in the size of the sign in order to help this formerly struggling facility to become a thriving part of your community. It's located in commercial development away from the Daniel Webster Highway. The purpose of this application is to increase the dimensions in order to be consistent with the common industry standard for outside advertising. And I think as noted in the application, right now the applicant does have the option to either show on-site or off-premises advertising on the sign, and the applicant indicated in the application that if this variance is granted as a quid pro quo, if you will, or an inducement to the town, it would waive its right to do off-site advertising on this sign. Since the board has already decided that the height, the electronic format, the dimensions, the sign weren't contrary to public interest, and so the real question is, okay, increasing the sign, is that going to be against public interest? In this case, the public interest, I think, can fairly be summarized as, assuring that the land, your commercial landscape, if you will, isn't cluttered or visually, overwhelmed, or that the signage is out of character with the area. This sign is unique. It's directed toward the turnpike traffic, and it won't at all contribute to any issues with the street signage or street views on the Daniel Webster Highway itself. Mr. Bartholomew noted a similar sign, of this type is the Merrimack Premium Outlet sign. But as he noted, the size of that sign, just, by comparison, is this 1,600 square feet. As compared to the request here is for a sign for 672 square feet. So the Merrimack Outlet sign is just 2.5 times as big as this sign would be, if that helps you kind of put it in perspective. And I think most folks, would agree that the Merrimack Outlet sign, does not seem out of character with the area, does not overwhelm, and, certainly is not contrary to the local character. For all of those reasons, we feel that the sign, the increasing the size of the sign is definitely within the public interest, is not consistent with the local commercial character, and will help the overall commercial revitalization of this part of town. And for that reason, we think the granting of variance would be in the public interest. Based on the last application, you like me to stop in between items?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Any questions on granting the variance contrary to the public interest?
Rob?
Rob?
No, I just wanted to clarify to make sure it's clear. When the applicant came before the board in 2017, they sought the variance for off-premise and on-premise advertising. The way the ordinance is written, you can do either or, but not both. That variance was denied, so that's when he's saying that he can waive his right to do off-premise. So it's either or. So he can still do off-premise, but it'd be limited to off-premise only, or he can do on-premise only.
Yep, no, I remember
So,
that.
okay.
So in regards to number one, granting the variance would not be contrary to public interest, any questions, concerns? Okay, number two, spirit of the variance.
Okay, the granting variance would be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance. Again, I find sometimes you feel like you're repeating yourself, but that's what you need to do to address the issues that, again, the spirit of the ordinance, in this case, the purpose of the ordinance, your sign regulations are to balance the interest between having signs, allowing businesses to advertise, allowing people to advertise in a functional and adequate manner, but at the same time avoiding cluttering, confusing, overwhelming your community. And I think in this case, as Mr. Barsamian noted, after review and consideration, they discovered that the sign as approved is simply not large enough to communicate the message they need to the passing motorists on I-93. And in addition, is not consistent with the common industry standard that the tenants are looking for to advertise on the property. The proposed increase in the sign, will not contribute to clutter or confusion or have a negative impact on the community. And as described above, in fact, it'll be of a much lesser impact than the Merrimack Outlet sign, which I think everybody agrees does not clutter or overwhelm, and so would definitely still be within the spirit of your ordinance.
So I guess the only question I have is regarding the spirit of the ordinance is, in 1707, billboards are prohibited. So if this is a billboard, this doesn't sound like it's comparable to either the sign at the Merrimack outlets, or I guess my question more is to Robert, does that make this a separate variance required to have a billboard?
Cite the variance number.
It's 17.07.3.
If the applicant limits the advertising to on-site, as they do say, then I don't feel that it qualifies as a billboard.
But that's billboards based on size, not on whether or not it's, what message is gonna be on it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a little subjective, don't you think?
So without a definition of billboard in the ordinance, I'm forced to go back to other similar type definitions. I mean, on the spot, I can't define exactly how I would do it. Off the top of my head, sitting here, I consider a billboard to be off-premise focused advertising. And they're testifying that it would be on-premise to try to drive traffic to their site for the on-site tenants. So that to me is conflicting definitions.
Okay.
So to me, it would be a permitted sign with the on-site advertising.
I think the only thing I'd like to add, if I can, to that is that, you know, I said a billboard size. It's a sign. We're not considering it a billboard. You know, a billboard. 'cause
Oh,
this-
I'd love clarification on that, that's all.
Yeah, just, you know, it's a sign. I mean, if we were going for an off-premise sign, then I think that the billboard issue would be, you know, something that I think we could focus on a little bit, but you know, that's the size. I was trying to give you a perspective, sign versus, you know, size of sign. What does it look like? Not that we're calling it a billboard. We're calling it a sign.
Okay.
Number, substantial justice?
Okay, the grant of variance would do substantial justice. The substantial justice here is achieved by permitting the applicant to have a sign that's proportional to the size of the project and reflects the needs of this particular commercial development. There's no question that the Merrimack community is served better by seeing the revitalization of this project, and that but that, as Mr. Barsamian has noted for all of you, the revitalization of this project is absolutely dependent on visibility of the project to customers, who will then patronize the tenants, who will then be happy to come to the property. You know, as I say, after careful research and review, the applicant has discovered that the 14 by 48 foot sign is the most common market standard for this type. It's what the tenants are looking for. It's what they're asking him for when, you know, they say, what are you going to provide me when I move in here? So, you know, I think the effective, cost-effective, you know, advertising consistent with national marketing requirements will further the success of the property, but is also consistent with the, you know, the development of property of this type in this era. And we say granting the variance will do substantial justice by, as I kind of made the point earlier, balancing the interests of the community and assuring that signs don't become unattractive or unsightly, but also supporting the tax base, supporting the community, supporting the tenants in the community. And we do not believe that there are any negative impacts to approving this sign, and certainly on the issue of substantial justice, as was just discussed, the applicant has offered to waive a right that it has under the zoning ordinance to opt to advertise off-premises business on the sign if this variance is granted.
Questions on number 3? Number 4?
Okay. There, you know, has been nothing presented to indicate that building this sign will cause the surrounding property values to be diminished. And in fact, I think Mr. Barsamian just testified in his mind. He feels that the values of the not only his property but also adjacent properties will increase as a result of the greater success of this business. You know, the variance has already been granted for the size, you know, the location of the sign, for the existing sign, for the 100-foot tall, you know, pylon, and so increasing the size simply, you know, allows more motorists to see the sign, more people to be attracted to this property, and the more people who are attracted to the property, the more valuable this property and its neighbors will become by virtue of the fact that, as Mr. Barsamian said, more drive-bys indicates more value for the property owner.
Questions on number 4? Number 5 on the unnecessary hardship?
Sure. The unnecessary hardship is broken up into a couple sections. I think in the interest of saving time, I'll refer to it as 5A1 rather than reading it, but basically, there's, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the public purpose and the specific application to the property because, and again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but the general purpose of the ordinance, the sign ordinance control, unchecked development of signage, unchecked signage that may interfere with the development of your community, the attractiveness of the community, but that's balanced, with the need to allow your residents, your resident businesses to effectively communicate with the members of the public. And in this case, the public purpose is not undermined by granting a sign of this size, especially where, in this case, it's directed directly toward the turnpike and not toward your roads, and that there really is no fair and substantial relationship between your purpose in controlling signs and limiting the ability to grant this variance in this particular case where it is unique, it's adjacent to the highway, it's going to speak to the potential customers on the highway, and it will not clutter, will not be negative to the community, and as noted, it will be almost a third the size of the Merrimack outlet sign on your your highway streetscape as somebody drives by.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna stop on that one. What you said regarding, I think I gotta be honest, I'm being honest with you, you might have been better off to read the first paragraph, because that talks a little, when you're talking about signage, the clutter, the overwhelming, but talking more about drawing the traffic, from what you described, I don't see unnecessary hardship, unless maybe I missed something. I think you'd be better off to reference the Ever Turnpike as opposed to local roads, is where the sign's going to be directed, and drawing traffic from there. I guess just a semantic thing for me. You kind of seem to wander off that a little bit. But why don't we do 5A2, proposed use is reasonable?
Yeah, well, and I can do that, but I hate to leave a board member confused because it means I didn't do my job. And I think the reason I was talking about the way it was directed and what was happening, I think it was a point that Mr. Barsamian made. The focus of the sign on the highway is necessary to get the people to decide to exit and then to be on the road, which then increases your traffic count, which increases your activity. So, and this is the case. The special condition here is that this project is not visible from the highway, it's not known from the highway, and the sign is needed to convey that message, to get the message out there that this property is here, and this is a place that customers ought to come to patronize these particular owners. And so hardship really comes from the fact they can't be seen, they're not noticed, and the sign will help to bring people to the property.
So 5A2?
5A2, proposed use is reasonable. Again, the board has already decided on the reasonableness and appropriateness of the sign in this location and the size and the sign that's been approved. And so really all we're talking about is increasing the size. And I think, as you can see from the video and from the renderings that we have, and knowing the size of the Merrimack outlet sign, somebody could conceivably come in with a much larger size and say they need it. That's not being done here. I think the applicant is requesting what is needed to accomplish getting the message out and having an effective sign without being unreasonably large, unreasonably inappropriate. As I say, they're going to comply with all your ordinances. They're not going to spill light on other properties, and they're going to act completely reasonably and appropriately within the ordinance, with the sole exception of the size will be a little bit larger than you would normally permit.
Okay. Any questions on unnecessary hardship? All right. Question? Okay. Going to open up the public hearing.
Do we go through 5B?
Yeah, we
We
did.
just did.
That's what I thought.
That's
Pardon
okay.
me.
Good morning.
We're going to open up the public hearing. Is there anybody like to speak in favor of this petition? Okay. I do have a letter. In reading the letter, I believe that the individual thought the sign was going to be on Daniel Webster Highway and not necessarily on the Everett Turnpike. However, because the letter has been submitted to Community Development, I do need to read it in for record. But I do also want to make sure I address her concerns. So this letter is from Eva Ferreira. She lives at East Ridge Road in Merrimack. She lives on East Ridge Road in Merrimack. To whom it may concern regarding the proposed new signage for 360 Daniel Webster Highway, I think it is utterly ridiculous to consider a sign any larger than the one that's already in place. People will be or are already aware of the new businesses. The increased traffic already on this one-lane road in each direction is awful. I live at East Ridge Village, and I often am waiting an enormous amount of time trying to leave or turn into my neighborhood. A 672 square foot sign may be appropriate for a major highway, but not on this tiny road in Merrimack. So she goes on to say she's considered selling her property due to the new development over the last few years, and that at 4:30 p.m. it takes her 20 minutes to get home just from Shaw's. Ms. Ferreira, I would say that I fully understand. I personally think that traffic on Daniel Webster, as I live off of Daniel Webster as well, is a little hectic. However, this sign is actually going to be on the Everett Turnpike, not Daniel Webster Highway. So, but again, I want to read that into record.
Yeah,
For everything.
I agree. I think she's confused as to
But
where it's going.
I think that she was not aware that it was
Yep.
going to be on the Everett Turnpike. But like I said, I wanted to read that
And
in.
in fact, she mentioned that it was more appropriate for
Major highway,
major highways, so.
like
okay.
Everett Turnpike. Okay. So thank you very much, Ms. Ferrer. Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this petition? If you'd like to come on down, please, and sign in, gentlemen, I'll need you to
Rob and Peter, if
move
you
the
would
table,
slide
please.
out. Yep.
Were you sworn in, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. You can take the mic out if you need, if it's easier for you.
Or you can sit in front and,
Or sit in front, whatever is wherever you're more comfortable.
wherever you're happy.
Yep, just bring it a little bit closer to yourself and make sure the light's on.
Oh, you did,
Yeah,
okay. Now it's
and
on.
just state your name.
Virginia Heald, and I live at Horseshoe Pond in Merrimack.
Mhm.
I wasn't really fond of the first sign, but I get it, and I can live with that. Business is hard. There's no doubt about it. I know that. I've been in business. My entire family's been in and out of business. I think this may be more of a problem of the choices that the landowners made as far as selecting an anchor store as opposed to really getting the advertising out there. We have mentioned in this same forum for this same property, the Monroe sign. Well, it's done. We live with it. Now we know, but once bitten. I also am concerned about the wildlife, really at the pond itself, but we have a lot of wildlife, and that kind of light noise, like you mentioned, is really going to affect them. I mean, we've had moose cross Daniel Webster Highway into Horseshoe Pond, not to mention all the other wildlife we have there. The increased square footage of the sign does increase light noise. That's there's just no doubt about it. I feel too that it takes away from the small town feel of Merrimack. This is why I don't live in Nashua anymore. I love the fact that everything I need now, including my gym too, is within 3 miles of where I live.
Okay.
And it is out of character. I think the Merrimack outlets in this sign, apples and oranges. The Merrimack outlets sign is softly illuminated or softly shining. I've never really felt that it's like, in your face. And it's characterized. It's got like a finial on the top and it looks kind of colonial. So I think that adds to the character, but there's also not houses and residential areas immediately adjacent to that sign either. I would like to know, and this should be an easy study to do, an easy calculation. I can't do it, but how many lumens will this be putting off at certain distances? And it even goes for above too, into the sky, because there'll be nightfall that this will affect as well. I forgot what I wrote here. But anyway, I think it will be affecting our homes. I always see out of the corner of my eye the Monroe sign. I think this is, and the last time we were here, it was understood that the sign is going to be above the roof, above the treetops. So it's not going to be covered by leaves and trees. It's going to be out there. We don't have anything between the Merrimack outlets and Bedford, and I think really rather like it like that. That adds to the character. What I feel the character is, as today's standards go, of a small field New England town.
Okay.
So.
Quick
question.
Go ahead.
No, go. You go first.
You refer to the Monroe sign, are you talking about the one that's on DW Highway?
Right.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because this one obviously is going to be. This is on the. This is on. This
bad.
is. This is going to be on. This is going to be out on ever.
The way DW Highway kind of twists and turns there, I think we will still be able to see what's up there.
Okay.
We will still be seeing that,
Okay.
even though it's at an angle supposed to be pointed at the highway. We're still going to be able to see that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak against this petition? Okay. Gentlemen, if you'd like to come back up. I actually did have a question, and I know that this is something that is coming up. There has been talk, and there's actually been meetings, I believe, even in Merrimack, or maybe Merrimack, I know in Bedford, about the widening of the Ever Turnpike. How does that affect the sign? Because you start making that, because that could, within the next 10 years or so, I guess, I don't know, be a 3-lane highway. So how does, because you have to be a certain amount of feedback from the road, a certain illumination based on where you're distance from the road. How does that play into the plans for this, or have you taken that into consideration?
I think where we've positioned the sign, we've looked at the expansion that supposedly is going to happen on the Everett Turnpike, and our setback is far enough back that it won't affect us.
Okay.
We'll obviously be closer to the highway, but we've already looked at that and gotten the plans that the state has said that they're going to widen.
And it probably doesn't need to be stated, but I can restate, of course, the state has oversight in this sign as well, and so the applicant will comply with all of the DOT regulations, and I would assume if they know that 10 years down the road, the location might be an issue, they're not going to let the applicant put it there necessarily.
Okay. Any questions?
No, I'm good.
Questions? If there's nobody else that wants to speak against or for this petition, I'm going to close the public hearing and open this up for discussion within the group. And I think that there is definitely some discussion that needs to be had based upon some of the conversations I've been hearing up here. So I'll start with Rich.
I guess my only My only comment is that, and this is, something that we may have to take another look at, is without a clear defined definition of what a billboard is, or a clear explicit document that proves this is or is not a billboard, I think it's kind of hard to pass something that could violate another ordinance with no plans to have a variance. So I guess even if we do pass this, would we have to attach, I mean, and that's the other thing, is that what would the language be for that? I think that's kind of
Rob?
trivial, or non-trivial.
You would just, if you were to grant the variance, you grant it as you would any others. It hasn't been determined at this point by staff that it falls under the category of a billboard, so it doesn't need to come up.
But there's nothing here that says it's not a billboard either, and that's kind of the thing, is,
And that's the
We-
decision that you can make as well. If you feel that you don't support the variance for those reasons, then you can certainly state those too.
well, I guess what makes it hard is that, if this were technically a billboard, then it would theoretically need to be accompanied by another variance, right? I guess my point being is that's not a decision I can make here.
Right, right now it's not determined to be one, so because it hasn't been determined, that's really not in front of you right now
Okay.
either.
Okay.
So.
Kathleen? Lenny? Questions, comments? Lynn? Comments?
I can understand the hardship. If this were going on DW Highway, I'd have a wholly different opinion on this, because the light noise, the size, everything else that's going along with this would just be totally inconsistent with, as they stated, a small-town feel. This is a sign that's going on the highway. It's a high-speed highway. If you don't have a reasonable size sign, you're not going to be able to see it as you, not necessarily the speed that I travel at, but at speeds that people normally travel at that road. You just can't see those signs. And you need, I believe that goes to the hardship of the whole criteria here, that due to the high-speed road, you need a sign that's reasonably read in the time frame that somebody's traveling. Now, the fact that they have angled it, kind of wedged it to protect the town and the people in the town and the houses and the residences that are close by, I commend them for doing that. And I will comment on the outlet mall, in that there's no residents out there. I think if you talk to the people at Whittier Place, they would significantly disagree with you, in that that's one of the big things that they were talking about when that outlet mall went in that they didn't want that. And I think their sign is impacting them a lot more than what this sign will impact on either Horseshoe Pond or Eastridge. I think the location of it, way in the back, on the highway, it's directed to the highway, it's directed to the high-speed traffic, I think is reasonable.
Okay. If there's no other questions, can I get a motion, please?
I will make a motion that we grant Apple Development Limited Partnership, petitioner and owner, a variance under section 17.10.3 of the zoning ordinance to permit a previously approved electronic reader board sign to have an area of 672 square feet, whereas 253 square feet is permitted by previously approved variance. The parcel is located at 360 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial Aquifer Conservation Planned Residential Overlay and Elderly Housing Overlay Districts, tax map 4D-3, lot 001, case 2019-07.
Can I get a second? Kathleen seconded. All in favor of granting the petition, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? 3-2-0. Petition moves forward. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good evening. All right, let's let everything clear up before we take the next. Because one of the items we have to discuss, Lenny is going to recuse himself. I am going to move up, just kind of move things around a little bit. We have the minutes of Wednesday, February 27th, 2019. Do I have any questions, comments?
As printed.
We have a move to approve as printed. Do I have a second? Kathleen seconds. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstain. So 4-0-1. Rich abstains. Lenny, have a good month. See you later. Rob?
He's making notes.
All right, I'll let him take notes.
Yes.
So the next item, we approved the minutes because Lenny has to step out and he's recusing himself for the next item. The next item is a petition for rehearing.
Yes.
I know we take no testimony, however, there's only 4 of us here. So either everybody has to vote in favor or it doesn't get reheard. Do we want-
3 to 1. If it's a split vote,
If it's 2-2, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
If it's
It doesn't.
3-1, it does.
it
And
amounts to.
it's 3-1, so it has to get, at least 3 people have to
Right.
vote for it.
Yep.
My point is, I'm getting at is usually when we have 4 people hearing a petition, the option is for that individual to wait for a
Yep.
full board. Do we
Yep.
do that with this? My question is, do we do it with this? Or this doesn't
Yeah,
afford
that doesn't
the
have
same?
those same, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure, before we all go forward,
Yes.
because if it's a split, it ends, okay, I just want to make sure that
Absolutely.
we don't have to take that person. Okay, so we have a request for rehearing for, let me double check.
This is Bean Road, right?
This is,
Oh, Woodward Road.
okay, hold on a second, just give me 1 second, guys.
Oh, yeah. Yep, yep. I got it.
Yes, okay, request for rehearing regarding case number 2018-3 in which the board granted variances under section 3.02 of the zoning ordinance to permit a 2-lot subdivision with 1 lot having 90 feet of frontage, whereas 250 feet is required, and having 61,160 square feet of continuous non-wetland area, whereas 100,000 square feet is required. The parcel is located at 85 Woodward Road in the R1 Residential Map and Aquifer Conservation Districts, tax map 7A, lot 007, tax map 4B, lot 130. I just lost my notes. Give me 1 second. No, I needed the cheat sheet.
That's it. That's
That
the
is-
cheat sheet.
Okay, yep, I got it.
Okay.
So the rehearing, the request for rehearing is based on that the board erred in the findings of fact for each of the 5 variance criteria.
Do we have the letter from the attorney?
I have the letter from the attorney. Was it in the?
It's attached to the memo forward in your packet.
I don't see it. Oh, wait a minute.
It's right here. So it said we erred. We erred to the findings of fact of each of the 5 variance criteria. I mean, I read through it, Rob. What's the? I didn't. What was the summary on? I mean, what's the summary on this? I voted against it too. That 410, okay, so that was the contingent granting variance, yeah, that was me, I voted against it. So, I mean, the request for rehearing is based on what, Rob?
That they're alleging that you guys committed errors in how you considered each of the 5 criteria. You may just want to go through and take a moment to read the letter out loud and pause on each point. if
All
you'd
right,
like.
I'll do that then. Okay, so, I'll read through this, ladies and gentlemen, bear with me. Motion for rehearing. Dear members of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, please be advised that the offices representing Pam and Carl Beaumont, who are owners of the property 180 Woodward Road, Merrimack, New Hampshire, they've been directly affected by the decision of the Zoning Board of Adjustment and granting the variances. The property owned by Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont, 81 Woodward, directly abuts the property owned by applicant owner. So, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. The applicant's property is identified as tax map 7A, lot 7. The property is located in R1 district and Aquifer Conservation District. According to the Merrimack zoning ordinance, a single-family residence in the R1 Aquifer and Conservation District requires 100,000 square feet of continuous non-wetland area. The applicant's parcel is approximately 7.8 acres or 342,103 square feet. The applicant's property has approximately 74,850 square feet of continuous upland non-wetland area. This means the applicant's property, as it presently exists, consists of land that is approximately 78% wet. The Babusick Brook travels through the applicant's property. The applicant is proposing a two-lot subdivision whereby Lot 7 would be reduced from its present 7.8 acres to 5.5 acres with approximately 74,850 square feet of continuous non-wetland area. The second lot, 7-1, would be 2.296 acre lot with continuous upland, approximately 61,162 square feet, although the plan submitted to the board did not specifically identify the location of the continuous upland. It is assumed the continuous upland would be in the location of the existing leach field for Lot 7 and the proposed leach field for Lot 7A. Where the applicant presently has one non-conforming lot, the applicant is now proposing to create two non-conforming lots. The applicant should have applied for a variance for the continuous upland for Lot 7 as well as Lot 7-1. However, the applicant was only seeking a variance for Lot 7-1. The public interest in this case clearly is to protect the Aquifer Conservation District and protect the massive amount of wetlands on the applicant's property. Creating a second septic system where one exists is clearly contrary to the public interest. The massive wetlands in this area provides an important function for the community and the public. The wetlands contain flooding, protects aquifer, and provides habitat for wildlife. With regard to the frontage issue, the applicant states that there is a significant distance above 140 feet between the existing driveway on Lot 7 and the proposed driveway on Lot 7.1. However, the applicant ignores the fact that there is very little distance between the driveway for 81 Woodward Road, which is former B&M railroad bed. The driveway appears to be located approximately less than 35 feet away from the proposed driveway for Lot 7.1. The applicant purposely designed 7.1 to only have the frontage of 90 feet, where 250 feet is required. Because an additional frontage would take away from the continuous upland for Lot 7, in essence, the applicant is sacrificing public safety with two driveways approximately 35 feet apart instead of further infringing upon the continuous upland for Lot 7. Wow, is that how people feel when they have to read this to me? Just kidding. Well, turn on your mic and let's talk. That's what this is a request for hearings about.
Although the plan submitted to the board did not specifically identify the location of the contiguous upland, it is assumed. By whom is it assumed? Well, I don't know.
I don't
know.
either.
It's assumed.
It's
not assumed by me.
I honestly, to be honest with you, I'm not lying. He's not, they're not citing things that I didn't see that's why I voted against it.
I know. We heard all of this.
Right, I'm reading, but the reason we're reading through this is because this is a request for rehearing, and the same reheared that.
But I hesitate to, I don't like, especially when an attorney uses the word, it's assumed. It's not assumed. Show me proof, don't
Right.
tell me what you assume.
I agree. Well, let's, Let me move on. We'll get through this and we'll discuss it. Sorry, just spirit of the ordinance is not reserved. Many of the arguments made in the above paragraph can be incorporated into this argument. The overwhelming spirit of the ordinance in this situation is to protect the Aquifer Conservation District and to protect the massive wetlands found on the applicant's lot. The applicant is creating two non-conforming lots where one non-conforming lot presently exists. I agree with that.
Yeah, there's no question that he's doing that,
Yeah.
but that's why you have a variance.
Yeah, well, and I agree with that. Granting the variance would not do substantial justice. The gain to the public, if the variance is denied, is the protection of the Aquifer Conservation District and the wetlands. The gain to the public, if the variance is denied, is the avoidance of dangerous situation where the driveway for Lot 7-1 would be located 30 feet away from the driveway of 81 Woodward Road. I see the point. I see the validation on that. But 30 feet away, it's
We have a lot of driveways that are 30 feet
Yeah,
away and less.
exactly.
And as I recall, I don't believe there was significant road curvature around there.
I don't remember
I
off the top
can't
of my
remember
head.
specifically, but I don't, but even so, 30 feet is a long ways, so I don't have any problem with this.
Rich, feel free to jump in if anything you want. No, it's okay.
I wasn't here, and honestly, I'm going to abstain when we get to voting.
Okay. You can.
allowed to abstain.
All right, now hang on a minute. If Rich is going to abstain, then
Then
you only
all
have
three of
three
you need
people
to-
voting, and three need to agree.
I mean, okay. I mean, I can read the rest into record, but I can tell you which way I'm going for it. And I don't think that it, because I gotta honestly, I mean, I voted in opposition to this and to both variances when they were up, and you voted in opposition to one of them. I can tell you that I would have no problem for a rehearing, based upon what I've read so far, especially the first one. And I haven't gotten into 4 and 5 yet, but I would have no problem for a rehearing. That's how I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna go.
I don't.
But I voted in opposition last time because I didn't agree with what the person was trying to do, based upon the fact that they were not hitting on a couple of the variances. And substantial justice wasn't one of the ones I was gonna cite, but I was ready to cite a couple others.
I don't have any problem with a rehearing. Because I think based on the discussion that we've had, not so much tonight, but at the last hearing, if they can provide additional information that was not provided at the time, that would change your opinion, but it has to be new information. It can't be information that was
Can't be the same
presented.
information that was
That's
presented
right,
last
because we
time.
made a decision on that. But if
Right.
you've got additional information that,
But I'm not seeing that reflected here, that there's
No, but-
additional information. I'm saying that it's the same information, it's on.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm seeing the same information that's just being worded differently.
I would agree with you on that. I would agree that they're just kind of looking at our note, they're looking at the notes from the meeting and they're kind of just spinning it around.
Right.
However, again, like I said, I voted against it. I have no problem for a rehearing. But to Lynn's point, if it's gonna be coming back and reading this, then it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be a waste of everyone's
Already
time.
read this.
If they're gonna come back and present something else, then I don't have a problem with, I certainly don't have a problem with the rehearing. That's
I
my
don't see how they
take
could
on it.
possibly present something that wasn't already presented. 'Cause I took extensive notes at that hearing.
generally speaking, I don't have a problem with a rehearing and giving somebody a second shot, whether it's the petitioner or an abutter, coming up with additional information.
So if they come in for a rehearing and we're hearing the same thing as we heard before, we can just stop it right there and then and just,
I don't think you can.
No, you
I don't
can't.
think we can.
Okay.
You can't.
No.
At that point, it's opened up and you're there to discuss the new information or.
Or lack thereof.
But I mean, they have to discuss new information. They can't be citing the old information.
Right. It can't be a rehash of,
So what I'm saying is if they come in and they start rehashing the old,
then you can vote accordingly at that time,
Okay.
after the presentation.
But we do need,
Okay.
but we have to listen to the
yes.
hour and a half.
Yes.
And for that reason, I would vote against the rehearing.
All right, then, you know what, if everybody's kind of got their opinion on where they're at with everything, I'm gonna call for a vote. All in favor of granting the rehearing for Pam and Carl Belmonte petitioners requesting the rehearing on case number 2018-03, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Abstain? So 2 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 abstention.
Does that work, or do you need the 3?
So you typically, you need the 3. You have to, as a ZBA, you need the 3 out of 5.
Okay, so we can't grant it.
Right.
Unless,
So-
Well,
go ahead, Rich.
So it fails.
Yeah, so as of this time,
But
it is a failed motion. That is
Yep.
all it is.
I'm not letting it stay.
Now, this is the exact same road we've been down before.
You didn't, based upon what you read in that document, you don't think that they should have a rehearing?
You don't think there's new information?
I don't, to be perfectly
I know you
honest,
weren't here for the last one. I'm asking you what
until
your-
I've sat and watched it, I'm not comfortable voting in either direction.
Okay, I'm not going to force you to do that.
It's personal preference, I'm sorry.
No, Rich, there's no reason to apologize. Yeah, Kathleen, you don't think that there's any other information that could be presented? I mean, if they come back and they present the same information again, then it's gonna, the same result's gonna happen. You know, everyone's gonna vote to,
But I'm not seeing anything in that document that I just read that was anything
Yeah,
close
Mike,
to new
Mike.
information. It was just a rehash of the rather extensive notes. 'cause
So
when
what
I
you're
got
saying
there-
is you don't,
I don't think there's any new information out there. I think you just want to argue it from third base instead of first base. So,
right, but you understand that in the rehearing, they have to, if the rehearing is granted, the attorneys and these folks, they need to come back here with new information. Because if they know if they come back and they're gonna rehash it, that they're not gonna get anywhere. It'll end up going the same
make
way
this
as it
easy
did.
for you. I'm not moving.
So now, what the board is able to do at this point, where we aired last year in this situation, is if you are at an impasse, I would recommend that you continue this discussion to your next meeting, wait for more members to be present who were present at the last discussion, and that way you have a full seated board to get the votes you need to go one way or the other.
I agree.
So
can we do that?
Yes.
Okay,
make a motion to
continue.
continue to, okay.
So I'll make a motion to continue then, this petition.
No, continue the discussion. Those are the
Continue
questions.
the discussion,
Discussion.
sorry, petition, I apologize. Continue the discussion for rehearing to the April, thank you,
To the last Wednesday, May
April
March.
24th meeting.
Yep.
All in
I'll
favor?
second.
Seconded by Lynn. All in favor of moving the discussion?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0-0. So we will have community development to get this on the agenda for the April meeting.
April meeting.
24th meeting, thank you. All right, and
Seeing nothing else?
that is anything else unless there's any other areas of discussion?
I do have a thing of discussion. I am very concerned about the billboard issue. I'm just throwing it out there because I don't think that our ordinances do a very good job of being explicit about that. And, you know, I guess what happens if somebody comes back and decides they want to appeal because of the fact that this is now in violation of a different ordinance? Or does that become a situation where somebody else can contest that after the fact, and now they've already built this billboard, and if the zoning board declines that for whatever reason or denies the variance, they have to tear it down? I mean, I guess I feel like it's very wasteful if we don't air this out now.
I think, if I may?
Yep.
I think that he brings up a good point, and I think that when we often have discussions about the zoning ordinances each year, about what might need to be revamped or rewritten and then presented to council for approval, this could very well be one of those items. Unfortunately, I don't think that we can't do a resolution this evening.
Oh, no,
But
absolutely.
I think that it's something that, if it's a concern, like, we used to have this concern about ADUs a long time ago. If this is, before the state made the change, if this is a concern, and it's a legit concern, because you got me, I'm interested, you and I are on the same page on this. I think that that's something that we take a look at to have changed. and then presented to town council.
But that's going forward.
That's going forward.
It's not gonna
going
change
forward.
tonight.
No, of course it won't
Right.
change tonight. And I guess my only concern is that, let's say, in the
Yeah.
example I made, let's say they build this and something happens down the road and someone goes, oh, wait a minute, this is in violation of that
Yeah.
1707.
Then they may have to take it down.
Yeah, and I guess without that clarification, I feel bad if we're putting them in that position where they may be forced to take it
We
down.
don't have a choice.
Yeah,
No, I know, I just,
But yeah, I understand.
and they may very well, if changes are made to the 1707 regarding billboards, if that's changed, then they may have to come back in and receive.
well, I think they get grandfathered
So-
into whatever the
Oh,
ordinance is.
Right.
Yeah, they would be
So,
Right, so basically, the way it's standing right now, the determination's been made that it's not a billboard. If no one appeals the granting of the variance, if no one appeals any administrative decisions, everything stands the way it is.
well, I guess my question though is, it's determined that it's not a billboard. What's the criteria as to whether or not it's a billboard?
Our
Right.
determination.
Because they have the ability to put any advertisement they want in or out of that development. It doesn't have to be that
Well,
development.
No, it has to
No.
be in.
Has to be in.
So,
No, it doesn't.
no, it does not.
No, it does not.
They can,
I said
they
that.
can do either or. They can do on-site only or off-site only. They can't mix between the
Right.
two of them.
So you can't
They-
have an advertisement for Planet Fitness and then have an advertisement for something.
Like Fidelity or
that's
something.
Auto
national,
fair.
Yeah.
For auto fair. You have to,
Right.
it either has to be everything that is on-site there or off. Now, he did say that it would be on-site
No.
because of the business. He did say that.
But that wasn't in writing.
You're absolutely right, and that's one of the
So,
reasons why I said no.
If I could, we're starting to rehash the discussion, and that's getting into dangerous territory now,
Yeah.
so we need to kind of stop that and limit it to, if the board has a concern with the lack of definition on what a billboard is,
That's something
certainly
else.
something to raise with the planning board, to have them put together a change, or work with staff to get us to
Yeah.
put together, to propose something to planning board, to work on it, get it before town
Good
council
point.
and get it approved.
So even if there's a change, that doesn't impact them because they're
That's correct.
grandfathered into the current.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, that makes me feel
Everything
better.
going forward would then have to fall into that new
Right.
defined area.
Okay,
It's one of those live and learn situations, I guess.
it absolutely
always
is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Leave
Kind
it.
of made me wonder. That's all.
I think you made I understand where you're coming from, and I agree with you on that, too. So,
The most important thing about the whole 360 is that there's
okay. You gotta turn, you keep your mic on. Yeah,
It's on.
okay. All right.
Thirsty moves to
So,
open.
do I have a motion to adjourn?
You do.
Seconded. All in favor? Approved, done.
Done. Over.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.